All right, and welcome back to Hattrick Sports Talk. Along with me, as always, is Shane and Brandon, and we got Tanner back again from the Hot Take Bros podcast. Excuse me. Welcome back, Tanner. Good to have you join us today.
How's it going, guys? Great to be back.
That's good to have you back.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started. We are getting started with Dalvin Cook, who is now in holdout mode once again. He would gladly take an offer in the $13 million range. I think they're basically looking at the $16 million annually Christian McCaffrey range. It's kind of all over the place. The last contract the Vikings offered was the initial offer of $10 million per year. Guys, what is your thought process on all these running backs holding out the past 3 years? Why do you think this is, and how do we sort of change it?
I mean, the short answer is just, it's this that they, I think they want more money than they're probably going to get. Because, if you look at the running back position, it's one that has, I guess, sort of lost a bit of its importance in the last few years. And because this is becoming much more of a passing league, people are spending, GMs, owners, they want to spend their money on quarterbacks, receivers, O-line, defensive line, whatever. So, as a result, it kind of has put the running back in this strange place, and they want this money like they want to be paid like stars, but in most teams, that's just not the case. I mean, for me, honestly, I could only see like 3, maybe 4 running backs in the NFL getting like more than $15 million a year sustainably. One of them being, McCaffrey, and then guys like Derrick Henry, whatever. So, anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tanner, I know that you wanted to go, and then I'll have Brandon go afterwards. Sorry, guys.
I mean, I honestly think what you said the last offer was $10 million for
That
him?
was the initial offer, yes.
Gotcha. I mean, I think for coming from Dalvin Cook's standpoint, I think he's wanting to get paid based off of his production. And when he's on the field, he's arguably a top 5 running back in the league. And so I think he wants to be paid as so. But coming from the Vikings standpoint, they don't know how many games he's going to be on the field. And health is a major, major question mark with him. And so usually I'm on the player's side for wanting as much money as possible and getting what they deserve. But I think that offer that the Vikings offered him is fair just based off the fact that they don't know how much he's even going to be able to play. As far as holding out and stuff, like Shane said, it's a much bigger passing lead nowadays. Like, there's the few outliers like the Seahawks and the Panthers, but those
Niners,
yes. How can I forget about the Niners? But those outside of those 3, there aren't a ton. And so, like, if you're lucky enough to get on those teams, I'm sure they'll pay the money for you. But I think a lot of teams like doing the running back by committee because it works with what they do. And so the only way we're going to see change is if there's some sort of change in philosophy in the league. And if it's just now, like the last couple of years, turning more pass heavy, it's not going to turn running back heavy for another 2, 3, 5 seasons possibly. And so I don't know if there's any real solution to it other than maybe a change of philosophy, but I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Brandon, do you feel that the Vikings are one of those teams, though, that really predicate themselves on that running game? And do you think Dalvin Cook is important to their success moving forward?
I think Dalvin Cook is making a very risky move here. He's obviously making a play for his future, which I have to respect, and he's making the play based upon how swamped the league is with good I would say even high caliber running backs, but not like superstar level running backs. I would say the league has lots of running backs who can get it done, who can be slotted in, who can be picked up, and I would call them the last minute fantasy pickup running backs. They're like the guys you put in there and you can get like maybe 150 yards and a touchdown if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to find a running back who's going to be consistent. And I think, as Tanner said, Dalvin Cook, when he's on the field, is one of the best there is. But he just isn't on the field enough currently for me to feel like the amount of money he's asking for is worth it. Especially with the fact that for some reason the Vikings, even with Kirk Cousins, still feel the need to throw the ball as much as they do.
I mean, not to mention they're paying Kirk Cousins like what, $28 million a year or something.
They had to pay him an extra 2 years because of salary cap concerns, so they added an extra 2 years on top of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing when you're looking at Dalvin Cook is, yes, the injury concerns are there, but I'm not as worried about his injury concerns. I really am not. I think he's okay. I think he's stable. I don't think he'll have many more issues with injuries the rest of his career. I don't know why I feel this way. I just think once when you look at any position really with injuries and someone who has an injury history like Dalvin Cook, you want him to stay healthy for one full season. And then in some way for some of those players, it does kind of give them a clean slate. And I think for a lot of people that's been the case with Dalvin. I think after seeing him for one full season, you're starting to understand, like, okay, I think he'll be okay. And they got Alexander Mattison back there, which is also part of the reason why I think the Vikings don't want to pay him as much, because they do feel like Alexander Mattison can contribute in a much higher level. And he did at points last year and was successful. So I think that's another sort of added reason as to why they don't want to pay him as much.
I think one thing with him, though, that people don't think about is he has torn his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
He had a grade 3 ACL tear, which immediately puts running backs down in terms of ability. I mean, you're just not going to be the same after you tear your ACL. And then he's had a history of hamstring strains or pulls. And I mean, I'm looking at this website, that sportsinjurypredicator.com, which takes players' injuries and they do percentages of injury. And this guy they're saying he has a 56.8% chance of being injured in 2020. Now they're only saying he's probably would miss like 1.8 games.
Mm.
But for me, it's the same thing with any player. If somebody has like a history of being injured, I'm gonna need you to play a full season before I start putting my chips on you. It's the same thing for me. It was the same thing for me with our guy
with Carson.
With Carson, I mean, I love him. He's great. I got to cover him in his first year in training camp when he was a 7th round draft pick. I saw him. I told everyone I could, like, this guy's gonna be amazing. He's gonna kill it. I mean, he plays really well, but he needs to show me that he has and more importantly, I feel like he needs to show the Seahawks that he can stay healthy for them to put all the trust in him. And that is the reason I believe why they picked up more running backs in the draft.
I think you bring up a good point, and Shane, I'll let you go after I make this thought. It's that, as the running back position, you have only a few years in the league, right? Basically 30s your cutoff. But it's also the massive injury concern and sort of the wear and tear that can happen at that position. I mean, we talk about Carson, we talk about Cook. Fournette is, I believe, still recovering from an injury as well. Those are just a few examples. Injuries at this position are are at a very high percentage, and I think that's also why it's tough for teams to want to pay running backs the kind of money that these players are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's, that would be, as a GM, I mean, that would be, my biggest concern for sure. I mean, that's ultimately what you want, is for your good player to be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, the running back position is tricky because you do get hit the most from all kinds of places you're not expecting, way more than any other position. I mean, you could say, well, what about, offensive line? They get hit on every single play. It's like, yes, but, it's just the guy that's right in front of you, and you're 300 pounds. It's not like you're, some not nimble, but it's not like you're, a more, I guess, like average sized football player, and, you're running full speed, not a giant, JJ Watt just comes and smacks you. It's a little different, so yeah, I mean, I think there is something to be said in the fact that, running backs have never lasted long, like you said. I mean, it just goes to show, especially when you have, I mean, if you look at a lot of teams now, and we talk about how the running back position is kind of losing importance, yet so many teams have 2 or even 3 good running backs. You know what I mean? Just so that they know they have a guy, and because it is such an injury prone position. And I mean, the fact is, you just need other guys who can step up if they need to, or, and that brings up another money question as well, but obviously, so I don't know. It's complicated, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And I think bringing up the Seahawks is a great point. Bringing up Carson's a great point, because you could say he's a top 10 running back in the league as well when he's healthy, but he's shown he's always going to have some season-ending injury at some point. Then you have Rashad Penny, who was our first-round pick a couple years ago. Has shown promise a little bit, but again, has struggled with injuries. Missed a lot of games, lost snaps. And like you see all these guys, especially like running back is my favorite position to watch. I think they're the most dynamic players on the field, in my opinion. But you just can't ever count on these guys staying healthy for a full 16-game season. And I think that's where the biggest thing comes in with it. It's just all comes down to health. And I think that's why the league is, we went through a few seasons where it was pretty run heavy, but I think it's starting to revert back to pass heavy, because we have seen it's so hard to keep these running backs healthy, no matter how good or bad they may be. And so until running backs can show that they can stay healthy, I don't think they'll be able to get paid what they want to.
Well, I mean, I think it's a few things, right? I think let's look, I don't know, early 2000s, 2010s, and then let's say 2014, 2015, this thought process kind of shifted. It's the idea that the rule changes, right? Wide receivers are more protected. The passing game is more protected, because that's what makes the game thrilling for a lot of people, is the passing game. So the NFL did a lot more, and credit to them for that, just the rule changes to make a passing game better. We went through a season, what was it, 2017, 2016, where a bunch of the quarterbacks got injured. Almost a quarter of the league quarterbacks got injured. And then by that point, it was like, all right, we need to protect these quarterbacks. We need to protect these receivers, because these are big playmakers. And then also what happens with that is, of course, the running back position kind of goes off to the side. But it also creates an interesting thing with the draft, because there's so many guys. I mean, look at this draft. Yeah, DeAndre Swift falling. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is pretty unique in the sense that he has a passing game ability, which the Chiefs love. But DeAndre Swift, and I mean, I'm losing some of the other names, but they just kind of fall in the draft. They're not I mean, it's very rare to find a player like Zeke who goes top 4, or even Todd Gurley who goes top 10, and even he went top 10, and he's dealt with a chronic, leg injury. So there's plenty of examples of sort of why this thought process has really shifted.
Yeah.
So Tanner, I'll start with you on this, because we've had this discussion for the last probably about month, pertaining to the MLB and the proposals and everything that sort of happened with that. They keep sort of now shifting to the idea of, all right, we're going to actually negotiate. But then for like the first month of that negotiation, it felt like they were all kind of doing it through the media, and it was really weird. And now they're really starting to negotiate, and there kind of seems to be some shift. I don't know how you feel about it, but what has been your thoughts about this whole negotiating process to get back to baseball?
I just want to start off with, I'm 100% on the players' side. Forget the owners. A lot of people, I've had this discussion. I can't talk. I've had this discussion many people on Facebook and some groups I'm in, and they're saying that they're on the owner's side because this is how the owners are making their money. And with as many games as the players want, I think the last time they checked, they wanted 89 was the proposal a couple of days ago. And the owners denied that. And I'm saying that you need to have at least 81 games in the season, at least make it half the season, and then have extended playoffs. That's what I would do. That's what I would propose. But a lot of people are saying the owners are going to lose even more money than before, but at least they'll be making money. I mean, these owners, a lot of people forget, they get money from TV deals. They get merchandise sales, advertising, they have sponsorships. So these owners have multiple ways of making money, whereas the players, because the league is so terribly marketed, only 1 or 2, maybe 3 players in the league are offered commercial deals and having that second wave of income coming in. And so I think it's selfish of the owners for what they're doing. They did agree to a deal on, I think it was May 29th, about how they'll be paid, how they're going to share revenue and everything. But now that the amount of games has come up, now they're just kind of pulling back, and they're trying to screw the players over, and that's wrong of them, because it's the reason why these owners are profiting so much from owning these teams is because of the players, and because the players are who brings in the fans. The players are the ones who market themselves and drive jersey sales. The players are responsible for almost all the wealth these owners ever make when owning teams. And so I think the owners just need to kind of look at it in the bigger picture and give the player, just give in to the players at this point. The players want to play, and the owners want to play if they make enough money. But I feel like at this point, more people would rather play the game or watch baseball than not, because you look at it in the big picture, it's all right, you play so and so amount of games, you're going to make so much amount of money. But if you play 0 games, you're not going to be making any money, no matter who you are. So I think that's what it all comes down to.
So I'll say this. The argument about players wanting to play, I started out this season thinking that players wanted to play, but I'm starting to think that the players would be more than happy to just sit out the season, sit out next season if they have to, and go into and just have an extended strike to try and make a point to the owners. And my thing about the players, about it being selfish from the owners, is, here's my thinking, and it's a very similar thinking I have whenever it comes to whenever it comes to the NFL and players, right? The only players who ever seem to be the ones speaking up and being the loudest are the ones who are going to not get even the slightest bit hurt financially by not having a season. The players who are the ones being the loudest are the ones who are going to lose the most money, right? Which is fair to speak up. But at the same time, they're the ones who are already the millionaires. They're the ones who are sitting there with the money. They're the ones who can afford not to have a season. I would be a lot more sensitive and sympathetic to the players if the ones who were speaking up, the ones who were making the most, were speaking up for the ones making the least, rather than speaking up as if just being like, oh no, like, we're not making our millions of dollars. Because when they've been talking about the prorated salaries, all the arguments I've been seeing, and I may not have seen every argument being made, but a lot of the arguments being made, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, is that I've come to the point in this whole thing where I'm a fan of baseball. I want to see baseball played. I don't care how many damn games are played this year. But I feel like both sides are playing games with each other now. I think both sides need to just come to the table. I think the owners need to be fair to the players, and I think the players need to give the owners a fair shot and realize what the situation we're in, the year we're in, the reality of the world, and realize this is not a normal season, and the fact that they can't expect to be paid a prorated salary of a normal season. And that's what I found ridiculous, is that the players were asking for initially a 181 game prorated salary. Now, yes, they've brought it down to being along the lines of they just want a full prorated for how many games they play, which I think is appropriate. I think if they play 81 games, they should get paid the salary they would make for 81 games, not for 181 games.
I'm on the exact same side as you when it comes to that.
So,
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, for me as a baseball fan, I want the players to actually sit down and think, are we close enough to what we can agree to? Like, it's not what we want, but can we deal with, I don't know, if the MLB was to come back with 81 games, I really hope the players could go 81 games, fine, that's half a season. And I also think the owners, as you did say, I think the owners need to realize, if the players are going to agree to 81 games, the owners have to agree to pay. Because at the end of the day, as I heard on the radio today, on 710 ESPN, they said something really smart, which was they've passed the point of looking good.
Oh, yeah.
Because by the time they start playing, people's eyes will be on MLS, NBA, NHL, and they sure as heck will not be on MLB when it eventually starts.
Especially with no fans in the stands. Like, it's literally going to be like, if you're a fan of baseball and follow the league, like, yes, it'll be fun to watch just because you can see these guys play. But say you're just a casual fan who doesn't really pay attention all that often, and you turn on the game and there's no one in the stands, like, it's just going to be like walking down to your local park and watching a Little League playing. Because it's super quiet. There's not going to be much enthusiasm. And so, baseball, like, as a whole, definitely blew their opportunity to be the one and only sport to be on and really gain attention from the fans, which they've been literally begging for the past, I don't know how long.
And I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory about this season, a little bit, and it has to do with the Astros.
Of course you do.
No.
We'll get to the Astros in a bit, so if you want to share that when we get to the Astros.
Not much of a conspiracy theory, because I think it probably is a pretty legit theory, but,
No, I think we're on the same page when it comes to that, because I've been talking to my friends about it, and I think I have a little conspiracy theory about it as well.
Shane, what has been your perspective here for the last 3 months? Do you think we're closer to a deal now than we were 3 months ago when we kind of started talking about this?
I mean, I wouldn't have thought so, but reports are coming out saying that they are. So, honestly, I don't know. I'm at this point, I'm kind of done speculating. I'm just gonna wait and see what happens. I mean, there's nothing else to do at this point, So, yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because I understand where both sides are coming from, but quite frankly, I think both sides are being a bit unrealistic. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is just it's too bad because it's not the ideal situation for anybody, obviously. But I mean, at this point, you just kind of have to make do with what you got, and it's not exactly going to be what you want, but it's just the way it is for right now.
I really feel like we're closer, and I didn't think we were going to get to this point where we were like, oh yeah, this is definitely like we're getting closer. I do think like last week on Monday, I thought, okay, yeah, we're getting somewhere. Like it's not perfect because if I were to be honest, we should have been at this point 2 months and a half, or like let's put it even, let's say 3 months ago. We should have been here 3 months ago. We shouldn't have had the whole, oh, we're going to propose this, but we're actually not. We're just going to leak it to the media, all this stuff. We should have been here a long time ago. And I don't know why it took – I think what's frustrated me the most is how slow it's been. I think, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, we're at this point now in June. We probably should have been at this point, let's say, I don't know, March 29th when they first proposed. Let's say like April 14th, we probably should have been at this point. And then they probably would have started playing, let's say, today. Like, if they were just a little bit quicker and did this process a little bit, we're at this point now. If we were at this point now in April, like mid-April, they would be playing baseball right now. And I think that's what I'm frustrated with. It's like we're probably not going to get to baseball till about mid-August when we probably should have been in baseball right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing for like why the players are being so stubborn right now is because last month when they started the negotiations, or they weren't nearly as active as they were today. Like when someone leaked that the players were upset about the salary thing, and instead of keeping it like tucked under the rug like it was supposed to, they leaked it out to Twitter, and then everyone like started bashing the players for being selfish, considering there's 4 million people unemployed right now or whatever, and the players are complaining about not making their millions of dollars. I think that's why the players are being so stubborn right now, is because the league let that news get out and they experienced a lot of backlash that they probably didn't deserve, because if whoever leaked it, if they were more professional, it would have never been leaked, and honestly, things probably would have gone a lot more smooth if it hadn't been.
Yeah, for sure. Tanner, I'll start with you on our last topic on the rundown before we get to our AFC West division preview. We wanted to talk about the Astros cheating scandal, and we wanted to revisit it, kind of where we're at with it now in June compared to where we were when kind of the whole thing, blew up. But what was your perspective on that day when all the managers got fired and everything? What was your perspective then, and has it changed at all now? Or are you still, like, where are you at with the cheating scandal today?
So when AJ Hinch and the GM got fired, I'm like, oh, good. But it's not enough. And I still believe it's not enough. Then they come out a few days later, they're like, oh, yeah, we eliminate their first-round draft pick. Okay, that's not enough. What about the players involved? Like I get it. They did ended up suspending Carlos Beltran, who had just taken the Mets managerial job, suspended him, but because he was a player at that point. But why why are they only suspending Beltran, and why are they only suspending Hinch and Lunau and Cora, who were all involved in it, like via coaching staff and front office, and Beltran being a player. But why aren't they suspending people like Altuve, Springer, Correa, all these people about it? So, I mean, I feel strongly about this, of course, but I firmly believe the punishment wasn't enough by any means. I feel like there should have been at least a few more players suspended, and they shouldn't have just let the managers or let the current day managers take all the blunt for it, because that's not fair. Like AJ Hinch claimed he tried to stop it, but as a manager, you have a ton of power. And if he truly tried to stop it, then why didn't he? And why, it's such a messed up scenario. And there's a whole bunch of pointing fingers, but I stand firm on the first round draft pick being taken away means nothing. First round draft picks in baseball mean nothing, especially compared to basketball and football, since you're not going to see them in the league for at least 3 or 4 seasons. Then it'd be one thing if they had suspended said players, like Altuve, when they were talking about the buzzers, Bregman and Altuve, when the news came out about that. If they had suspended them for a year, perfect. But then if they had banned, or then decided to ban Beltran, Hinch, and everyone else from the league completely, or especially Alex Torres, since he was kind of the instigator behind it. If they had banned people from the league permanently, I feel like I'd be comfortable with that. But it's hypocritical to be like, okay, we'll ban you from the league and we'll only suspend you. It doesn't make a ton of sense. So I get why the league didn't put out as harsh a punishment, but at the same time, the Astros ruined baseball was already struggling with the imagery and everything, and they just made it look even worse. And they won a World Series title because of it, and they almost won one again this year because of it. And up until everyone in that entire organization, players, managers, front office, owner, until all of those people are gone, I will not root for them. I won't watch them without having a weird feeling in my stomach and all that. It's just, if they're not considered the most hated team in baseball right now, then I don't know.
Well, the Yankees should be thanking them.
Yeah, exactly. The Yankees,
they are no longer the most hated team in baseball.
Exactly, because they've always been
for now.
But
I mean, yeah.
But then now, if you don't have hate for the Astros, then you shouldn't be watching baseball.
Yeah.
Then you should be a Patriots fan.
Yeah. And the problem is the problem, and the main problem is the Astros fans are so delusional. Because I watched a video today. I went back and watched a video today from the Houston a Houston newspaper. They went to spring training this year for the couple weeks we had spring training. They talked to fans about whether they did anything wrong, and there was this little old lady who goes, well, everybody was doing it, and I'm literally like, no, they weren't.
This is not cycling with PEDs. Not everyone was doing it.
And here's the thing, this is a scandal that has been proven that the Astros took a coding system that, yes, everybody does use, which is a coding system that is used, that all teams do use to help with signs and stuff. But then they took it way farther to create the banging system. And it's one of those things where when you don't notice at first, but when you go looking for it and you know what you're looking for, it is so obvious. And what pisses me off is it happens so much in games against the Mariners, in games against the A's, in games against the Angels, against the Rangers, against the Orioles, against teams that are not that good and like don't need to be happening. And then you take the fact that they did it against players who were just coming into the league. Like think about all the Mariners relievers who were called up from AAA, AA, whatever, to have their first start against against the Astros, got shelled, and then never were seen again.
Mm-hmm.
The lawsuits that were brought against the Astros and then dismissed should not have been dismissed, in my opinion. Those are legitimate loss pay suits because of the fact that you have a team cheating, and in a way it is slander, because it is instead of saying something, lying about someone through words is lying about someone through action.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think at the end of the day, the Astros, and the fact that not one of those players has the guts to stand up and say, yes, we did it, we cheated, I'm sorry. They are all a bunch of cheating scum to me. And I think that entire team should have been disbarred from the league. They should have gotten the equivalent of the college death sentence, which basically means no playoffs for a long time. They have their farm teams scrapped, and they should have to start from 2008 where they were when they sucked. Because frankly, they are a disgrace to baseball, and they cheated their way to victory.
Tanner, I think you can explain this better than most, because I this is one of the pieces that I find most interesting about this entire scandal. How does it affect players on other teams, especially minor league players who are coming up and maybe having a starter, things like that Brannan said? Can you explain how that is affected in a more deeper level?
So I'll just use the Mariners as an example from, let's say, 2017. 2017, I believe the Mariners had set the major league record for amount of pitchers used because of one, injuries, and two, just like we weren't that good, and so we had to filter all the way out. But so put yourself in the Mariners shoes for a minute and say, look, we're not going to be competing this year, but we want to see what's in our farm system, see what pieces could possibly contribute in the future and help us eventually make the playoffs and eventually the World Series, hopefully, knock on wood. You bring these guys up, like Jerry DiPoto has made the most trades in Major League Baseball since he's taken over for the Mariners, and it's not even close. Like, it's over 90 at this point, I'm pretty sure. And so there are guys, let's say, Rob Whalen. He was a reliever coming from the Braves system. He came up midway through one point, and he was struggling. I'm sure he faced the Astros at one point. And say the manager and GM were kind of talking like, here, let's see what he does tonight. And if he does all right, we'll keep him up here and give him another shot. But if he blows it, we're sending him down and probably won't see him again. Like, I don't know, just doing that, because it's one thing to study team signs before a game, like in scouting and trying to decipher them that, like, pre-game and all that, like, that's completely fine. But to do live action, the camera out in center field and then relaying the signs that way, not only does it affect the pitcher on the mound and the opposing team, but say there's a runner on first base, and here's something most people don't think about. Say the leadoff guy got on, or somehow there's someone on first base, and they hear a bang for a changeup. that gives them a cue that, oh, okay, this pitch is going to be a lot easier to steal a base on. And so, and stealing bases, of course, that makes it easier, like puts the infielders in action and then makes it easier to get a base hit. You know, you have a lot more movement, and creating movement on the base paths will create a higher likelihood of scoring runs. And so I guess this whole scandal is basically talking like it affected minor leaguers, because if they blew their one shot because of the Astros and they never got a shot, they worked their entire lives to get to that point, and they got their shot and they got cheated out of it and got the careers ruined. Who's to say it would have been different if they hadn't faced the Astros? No one really knows, but it's the fact that you will never be able to know that is what makes it so sickening.
Well, it's the fact that, and I guess this is going to just wrap up this segment because we could talk about this forever, never. But
yeah, I'll have Shane go to conclude the segment, yeah.
I'll just say one last thing. The fact for me about it, and then Shane can go. If you watch John Boy Media's video, it explains exactly what you only need to know about why it was a problem. The reason it was a problem is because the banging on they basically banged on the drum or whatever, on the trash can, when it was the best pitch for them to hit. And as what's his name? Mike Trout said when he was asked about it, and I quote, "If I knew what pitch was coming, it would be a lot of fun at bat." He basically said, if I knew what pitch was coming every time I went up to bat, it would be a lot of fun. And basically what he was saying is, man, if I was up there and I knew every pitch that was coming to me every time, I would be hitting like over 900.
And this is coming from a guy who's won league MVP multiple times, finished second another multiple times, probably arguably the greatest player to ever live.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
So that statement brings a lot of weight with it when he speaks up about it.
What you got to say, Shane?
You know, I think at the end of the day, it's simple. I think if there isn't some kind of a disciplinary action for something like this, other than just firing a couple of managers, stuff like this will continue because it's baseball. It's a game where it's a lot easier to cheat than some other sports. And, you know, I mean, I'll be honest. I think the Astros should have their 2017 title taken from them. I think that every player that was actively involved in the cheating, which I think was close to everybody, I think they should all be suspended for a year, fined like $1 million. I mean, you know, because now, I mean, the players have faced pretty much zero consequences. And so, therefore, you know, teams are going to look at it and go, oh, well, we can do the same thing. It's not a big deal, whatever, you know. So it's like, and I mean, honestly, who knows how many teams are doing stuff like this that just haven't been caught. But I think this team in particular that we know of needs to be used as an example, the rest of the league, to say, hey, this isn't right. This isn't going to fly, and you will be severely penalized and punished for it, which has not happened. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go on to the AFC West division previews, and we begin with the Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. Shane, I'll start with you. Let's look back at the Chiefs. Let's say when Patrick Mahomes first got there, and let's look at their run to getting to winning the Super Bowl last season. What did Andy Reid do well with this roster to get them to the point of winning the Super Bowl? What were some of their keys? What got them to this point, you think, compared to all these other teams Andy Reid has coached to amazing success? What has he done with this group last year to get into winning the Super Bowl?
Well, I think it's simple. It's just, building this this culture in this offense and like his passing system around this guy. Because that's, if you look at Andy Reid, that's what he is known for, is good passing games. And so, he sees this guy who has a really strong arm and who's young, athletic, and he's like, yes, okay, we're going to get, Tyreek Hill is fastest man in the NFL. Sammy Watkins, another great receiver. Get Travis Kelce, whatever. He was already there, obviously, but surround him with all these pieces. And then, of course they've built up quite a presence on defense, a lot of veterans and stuff. And so, they've built up this team with all these people, and I think they've just utilized everybody so well, including the running game, which is obviously not their primary source of attack, but they have proven that they can be very effective running the ball as well. So I think it's just, they're a team that is really good all around, that takes advantage of everybody's talents to a great extent. And that's why I think they are and will continue to be successful.
All right, so let's look at this schedule. What games are you guys most looking forward to? What do you think is some of their tough stretches here in these 17 weeks? Baltimore, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, Baltimore's a good one. I'm looking forward to week 1 against Houston, because I don't think Houston's going to be any good. I just want to see what they played each other in the AFC Championship. Oh, no, it wasn't AFC Championship.
It was the divisional round.
I just want to see how this week 1 game compares to that divisional round game, with the losses that Houston's taken this year. I feel like that might be a little interesting. Yeah, Baltimore, those are arguably the 2 best teams in the league right now, so that'll be a really fun one to watch.
Buffalo too.
Buffalo.
I think Buffalo probably has the best defense right now, or one of the best.
Yeah.
Seeing them go up against that offense, that'd be interesting.
Maybe Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
Tampa
Tom
is
Brady
definitely a
rematch.
good one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think they're gonna have another really good year this year.
Mm-hmm. How would you rate this schedule, Brandon? For
it's
you?
Easy. I mean, it's yet another example of what I've always said about how, like, teams that have won the Super Bowl are supposed to have hard schedules, but, like, this reminds me of the Seahawks when we won the Super Bowl. Like, we were handed a pretty easy schedule the next year, and this is a pretty easy schedule. I mean, you could argue that they have the same thing going for them that the Seahawks had, where our division at the time was not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
So you get 4 games that are just kind of there. 6 games that are just kind of there. Thanks, Shane.
You're welcome.
And then, they also kind of have some gimme games like New York, Carolina, Las
Vegas,
Vegas.
maybe. That's a Sunday night game. Of course it is.
I could see them. They're gonna run away with the division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I was just looking at the schedule, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win 14 games this year.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have no trouble with 14 games. I could see them going maybe 15 games even.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall in the entire league, I think they're gonna have the best record.
Oh yeah.
Just schedule wise. They've also kept like pretty much the same team.
Yeah, it's really incredible how they've kind of kept everybody. Yeah, they're looking at some cap some horrible cap issues coming up with Mahomes' contract, which will probably get done by the end of the summer, from what I've been hearing. So I think that contract's going to get done sooner rather than later. So definitely by
I thought
whenever
they were
training
waiting
camp.
until next year.
I think they've been talking this summer, or they're going to continue discussions this summer. I would expect the contract to get done by late August. I really think it's going to get done that quickly. And Mecole Hardman as well. I mean, I love this receiving core because it's just ridiculously fast. But what are your guys' X Factor players? Shane, I'll start with you.
Oh, boy. So many options, but
There are a lot.
yeah, but I mean, I'll just go with the obvious answer, or not obvious, but probably the popular answer. Mahomes. I think that I mean, like I said, they've really built this system around him, and I mean, you could see in those few weeks when he was hurt last year, they didn't do bad necessarily, but it wasn't a walk in the park by any means. And just seeing him and his playmaking ability and the insane plays that he's able to make, and I mean, I think this guy is a big. I mean, yes, the team is stacked, but he is a big reason for their success, I think, because he fits so well in their system. So, yeah.
Brandon, I'll have you go next. X Factor player for the Chiefs.
I would say Mahomes, but just because I don't want to pick the same person, I'm gonna go with Frank Clark. We've all seen him play. We all know what he can do. We all saw him last year. I mean, frankly, I was super sad that we didn't make the effort to get him again. But I was of a lot of all the players that have left the Seahawks, I was most happy to see him succeed and really get the money that he was deserving of, because I think I know the Seahawks would have given it to them if they were in a position to give it to him. They've had nothing but good things to say about him, and he just added to an already upgraded defense from last year. I mean, I've talked a lot of smack about the Chiefs defense over the years, but I mean, you have to admit, even I have to admit, that they had a really, really good defense last year.
Tanner, what do you think for the Chiefs here?
So they already said who I was going to say. So just for the sake of being different, I'm going to say Tyreek Hill, just because probably the fastest guy in the league, great hands, great route runner. The dude just brings juice to the team, and I feel like whenever he's gone, the team just isn't playing at the same level, and I think he's huge for them. So I've got to go Tyreek Hill as that.
Last year, my pick was Mecole Hardman. I think this year I'm going to go – oh, man, I'm having a tough time. I want to take a couple of the safeties. I'm having a tough time between Tyrann Mathieu or Juan Thornhill. Juan Thornhill's going into his second year. I expect him to have a huge jump. I am worried about their punting game. I know that's bizarre to say, but they lost their punter. Obviously to handle some cap. Not that it really matters, but it's an interesting punting competition between Tyler Newsome and Tommy Townsend. Townsend was with the Raiders. He was pretty successful there.
Townsend.
I do expect Townsend to win the job at the punting at punter. But again, it's not that important considering how good that offense is. I'll go Juan Thornhill. I really expect him to have a jump. I love Tyrann Mathieu as well. I think Tyrann Mathieu is so underrated. The guy was amazing in Arizona. Kind of fell off a little bit over time, but with the Chiefs, he was a perfect addition to that team. But I think Juan Thornhill in his second year, I'm expecting him to make a massive jump, play more snaps, be more effective. And if he's more effective, this defense is going to continue to be great. As we've talked about, this defense is very underrated. but they definitely have a shot to be even more successful with this group coming back for another season. All right, let's move forward here to the Denver Broncos. This is a really interesting team. A really kind of up-and-coming team here. Brandon, do you expect the Broncos to have a good year? There's a lot of hype surrounding Drew Lock this season. They've really given him a lot of receiving weapons. What's your expectations for them this season?
They didn't really impress me last year. I don't find them to be an impressive team. I think Drew Lock's okay. I'd probably say 7-9 like last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a couple interesting games in there, like Atlanta that they could win, Las Vegas. That opening game against Tennessee will be interesting.
Yeah, Monday night.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I don't know. They're one of those teams I don't really pay that much attention to these days.
Shane, what's your perspective on the Broncos this year if you look at their schedule and sort of Drew Lock's development?
I mean, I wasn't, I'll be honest, last year before he started playing, and even when he did start, I wasn't totally sure about him. Just because, I mean, quite frankly, I didn't know much about him. But you look at when he came into that organization, or when he did end up starting, I think they went like 6-1 or something. Or no, 5-2. I don't know.
I think it was 5-2.
Yeah, and I mean, you could really see the team coming together, and so I was like, okay, maybe this guy is actually, pretty good. And he put up decent numbers for his short time there. And I think that Denver made some good moves in free agency and in the draft as well, for sure. I expect them to improve quite a bit. I mean, I don't think they'll win like 12 games or anything, but I think, just looking at their schedule, I mean, yeah, there's some tougher games. I mean, it doesn't help that they're playing at their NFC division is the South. They're pretty good. Kansas City twice. That's not easy. Tennessee even, but then you got games like New York, Miami, Atlanta, LA. It's like, yeah, okay, easier, or ones that should be easier. So I do see them continuing to improve without a doubt going into this next year.
Tanner, what are your thoughts on Drew Lock and what they've especially done offensively in the draft, because they really completely focused on that offense to help Drew Lock?
So I'm not going to lie. I haven't really paid much attention to Drew Lock, nor have I the Broncos. I just never really thought they're that entertaining of a team to watch for whatever reason. I think, like, mainly whenever I think about the Western Division in the AFC, I always think about Kansas City and how good they are, and they're going to run through that division. Looking at their schedule with the knowledge that I have of Denver, I wouldn't be surprised if they were basically the same team as they were last year. I was kind of thinking between 6 and 8 wins, probably maybe 9 if they're lucky. Can't really say. I do like the Melvin Gordon addition they made this offseason, but other than that, I feel like they're a year, maybe 2 away from really, really starting to compete.
See, the Melvin Gordon thing I really didn't like at all. I didn't see the point. Yes, the contract wasn't too bad, but Philip Lindsay is good, and he was pretty productive last year. His numbers, I believe, were down from last year, but I thought that he is more than capable to leading the running back room. And him and Melvin Gordon, I just don't know how they're really going to mesh. But let's go X Factor players. Shane, I'll start with you for Denver.
I started last time. Start with someone else.
All right. Yes. Tanner, you go first.
Like I said, I like Gordon a lot, but I looking at the roster, I've heard a lot of good things about Cortland Sutton. I feel like I remember when he first came up, he had a lot of hype behind him. And so maybe this year with the new quarterback, maybe they start building that connection and he lives up to the hype. So I'm just going to say Cortland Sutton.
All right, Brandon, you go next.
Let's see. I'll go with, I guess, Noah Fant.
Yeah, that's a good pick as well. This tight end group is pretty crazy, but what do you like about Noah Fant and his skill set?
I think he just adds another weapon, receiving wise, that the team just didn't have last year. I mean, I could have gone with Jerry Jeudy, but I feel like that's kind of the obvious in terms of just like, oh, flashy speed, whatever, you know. I also think having Nick Vannett there as someone who can help, like, I would say teach Noah Fant. So,
yeah, I loved Albert Okwuegbunam out of Missouri. He was my number one tight end in the draft. Jeff Harmon's pretty good as well. This is a nice tight end group. Great receiving core now with KJ Hamler as well. I wonder how they're going to spread the ball around there, but I love their top three. Garrett Bowles is terrible. He's just not good. Defensively, they're pretty solid. Alexander Johnson had an incredible year last year. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, of course, he was injured. He's still recovering from his injury, but I'm excited to see how he'll play. Jarrell Casey, who was not happy with the Titans at the end of his run there for good reason. And the Broncos picked him up, so great pickup there. Justin Simmons, very underrated. I like AJ Boye as well. Special teams is pretty nice. Brandon McManus, Sam Martin. I got to go with Lloyd Cushenberry, though, the rookie center. I think getting a rookie center when you're having a young quarterback is really helpful as a guy who can kind of lead that line. And I think blocking for Drew Lock is going to be really important. I don't think this line is very good at all. It's definitely improving, but I don't think it's that great. But Lloyd Cushenberry definitely makes it look a lot better. And with Drew Lock, I really expect a big jump from him this year. I was really impressed with him last year. I watched a lot of his games. I think I watched every game that he started last year, or at least a good portion of every game he started last year. I was really excited by his potential. I expect him to jump up. A lot of people see this team as a team that can win 10, 11 games, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. All right, so let's move on to the next team, which is the Las Vegas Raiders.
By the way, my X Factor player was Noah Fant as well.
Oh, that's right. I missed that. Talk more about Noah Fant for you as well. My bad, Shane.
Oh no, that's all right. I was just gonna say because it's basically this is what I get for volunteering to go last.
My apologies. My sincere apologies.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I mean basically because you look at him last year. He only played 5 games, I think. Yet he had, I think he had like 40 receptions and like 600 yards or something, which is, I mean, that's huge for a tight end. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and how he can make more of an effect on the pass game.
How do you think that pass game is going to work with all that talent there at receiver? And then having Noah Fant at tight end as well.
I mean, how would it work? I mean, how would it not work? They have infinite options. They got deep threats, route runners, vertical tight ends, more blocking tight ends. I mean, the options are endless. It will be. I do think it'll be a little challenging for some secondaries. That's for sure. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
All right, now let's get to the Raiders. Sorry, Shane.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right, let's talk about this team. What do you expect for their move to Vegas? I'll start with Tanner.
I think it'll be exciting, but the team will underwhelm. I love John Gruden. I've consistently said that he's one of my favorite head coaches in the league. He's yet to show that he's able to adapt to today's game, but I also think part of that is they haven't had the pieces to do so. I'm not gonna hold them to high expectations whatsoever, because I believe there are better teams in the division. But it'll be interesting to see how they perform, with how Carr performs, how Josh Jacobs performs. I really like them. If I'm not mistaken, I think they also got a really good receiver in the draft.
Yes, they
And
got
so-
Henry Ruggs.
Gotcha. And he was out of Alabama, and I know a lot of people are talking he's one of the better receivers available. Who knows? I mean, it's just so tough with the Raiders. Like, they're really good, and I believe it was 16 they were really good, and then they just fell off after Derek Carr broke his pinky. But yeah, I know. Like, I'm rooting for them. I hope they do something well. But looking at their schedule, they've got Carolina, New Orleans. Like, Carolina might be a good game, but I can't see him beating New Orleans or Buffalo, Kansas. I can't see him beating Tampa, or even the Colts. I don't think they'll be very good against them either. So I think they'll pretty much be the same team as last year.
Brandon, they seem to be a little overhyped by the national media with these national TV games. But also, do you think that Derek Carr's time is done in Vegas after this year?
Probably. I mean, Gruden has made it obvious that he doesn't like him for some reason. I just think he's going to be another Tannehill where Gruden's going to be like, be gone, and he's going to go to some team that needs him, wants him, and then he's going to be like, lol, I'm better than you gave me credit for. I don't know. I don't think he's amazing, but I think he's better than Gruden thinks he is.
Shane, you've been an advocate for this as well about the underappreciation of Gruden, of Derek Carr.
Yeah. Well, I think Carr is better than people think. I mean, he's consistently one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he has a career completion rate of close to 70. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. There's a lot of problems with the Raiders, and I don't think he's one of them. I think he just is in the wrong organization for him, and I think he would play really well in a different system that's better for him. Which one, I don't know exactly. I would have to think about that, but yeah, I could definitely see him becoming, another Tannehill, if you will.
Brandon, I'll have you go first. X Factor player.
I'm going to go with Henry Ruggs. I just think he kind of fits the type of player that Derek Carr likes to throw the ball to. He runs routes well, has good hands, can make the catch. He's consistent,
Yeah, for sure. His speed is huge, and that's a huge reason why they drafted him. Shane, I'll have you go next.
I'm going to say Corey Littleton.
Mhm.
I think this is, the defense struggled, to say the least. And I think this is a great pickup for them from LA. He's, he's a good piece to have, at the center of that defense. I mean, he had, I think, around 80 tackles last year. Really solid player. And, and he's still relatively young, but he's, definitely coming into his own. I think he's, just one piece of many that they need for, this defense to start being more successful. Because, offensively, I think they're fine. Not great, but, I think they can carry themselves well enough. But you got to be able to back it up on D. And I think he is going to be, the key when it comes to that.
All right, Tanner. Last but not least, who do you have for the Raiders here?
Like I said earlier, I really like Josh Jacobs. He performed really well last year, and assuming Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow perform well and kind of open up the passing game, I'm sure they'll give more opportunity to Josh Jacobs to have maybe have some bigger plays when teams possibly think that they're going to be running. I think Josh will be a huge key to their offense no matter what. Like, even if the passing game isn't good, I feel like Josh is going to be probably the number one, not option, but number one person who determines how well the offense is going to perform. I think he's their best offensive weapon.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. A couple highlights for the team first. Mariota, of course, bringing him in. I wonder if he'll start at some point this year. He's the highest paid backup quarterback in the league. I think at some point, as we've talked about, Carr, that Gruden doesn't like him for some ridiculous reason. I think Mariota might start at some point. It might be late in the year. It might be towards the middle. We'll find out. Let's see. I actually like this top four receiving core: Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow. They picked up Nelson Aguilar. Zay Jones isn't terrible. Darren Waller, and they got Jason Wynn to help him out. I love Darren Waller's skill set. Max Crosby really showed out this year. Nick Kwiatkowski, I think they just added him as well. Pretty solid player. I'm going to go with Jonathan Abram. I think he got a major injury in training camp, late first round pick. I've actually been really amazed at how well the Raiders have drafted in the past few seasons as Gruden's been there with Mike Mayock. They've reached on a bunch of guys, but even though they've reached on a bunch of guys, they've been really smart with those reaches, getting players that fit their system. I think Abram's another one of those guys. This is essentially his rookie year because he didn't play a single snap in the regular season. I expect him to have a good year and really help this defense out, which, yeah, this defense is still in development as it should be, but I definitely think they'll be a lot better.
They're going to be an interesting team. I think they'll do better in the first half of the season compared to the last half, just based off being relocated. I feel like Vegas is going to be a fun place to play.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it works in Vegas, and I think there's going to be a lot of hype surrounding that team. And that's part of the reason Gruden got hired there, because I felt like, okay, Vegas, getting a guy like Gruden and Mayock, kind of splash coaches, splash GM in some ways, can really, bump up the ticket sales and bump up the hype for this team. And clearly the networks feel that way as well with this team, considering how many national TV games they have. Finally, the Chargers. Tanner, I'll start with you. We're looking at the rookie quarterback, Justin Herbert, of course. Do you think he's going to start early on in the season? And if not, where do you think he's going to start? And do you expect him to be successful in Los Angeles?
I think he'll probably – it's going to be a quarterback battle in training camp and obviously through preseason and all that. But I think – just a gut feeling, I really like Herbert, and I think he will end up being the starter week one. That might be wishful thinking on my point, but I just don't think Tyrod Taylor will be able to add a ton to the team if he's starting. I think this team wants to rebuild and kind of move off of the Phillip Rivers era. And what better way to do it other than start Herbert to start the season? I don't think they're going to be great next year, but I do think this will be a very important year for Herbert, to say the least. And then Tyrod will likely be the backup.
Mm-hmm. Now, according to most reports, it seems like Tyrod will start, but I think there's a chance that could change. I think you even look at Miami with Tua. I think that has changed dramatically over the past couple of months. I think Tua is probably going to start week 1. I think it's going to be kind of the same thing with the Chargers. Obviously, no injury concerns there, but I think if we have preseason, let's say we have 2 games, I think Herbert, if he impresses, they're going to be definitely considering starting in week 1. Shane, what are your thoughts on Herbert in LA? What's kind of your scouting report on him, watching him a lot in college?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always skeptical of Pac-12 quarterbacks going to, and Pac-12 players in general going to the NFL, because they usually don't do that well. But I look at this guy, I look at his physique and the way that he plays and, the way that he's developed throughout college. No, he didn't have a significant jump in his last year, but, I think, this Chargers roster is still, they still have a lot of talent. Now, there's no denying that. I mean, they have a fantastic receiving core. Running game took a bit of a hit, but we'll see what happens there. And then the defense is decent. I don't know. To be honest, I don't really know what to make of this team right now, because they should have been, like, in my opinion, they should have been a lot better last year than they were. And I don't really know why they weren't. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was Phillip Rivers. I don't know. The offensive line is not great, but yeah, I really don't know what to make of this team. I think Herbert has a good chance of having a good future there if they can, sort of rebuild from here on out. But I'm not holding my breath right now, like this year. But we'll see. I am excited to see what happens there. I think in the time being, Tyrod Taylor is a decent bridge guy for them. But who knows if he'll even be playing now. So anyways.
Yeah. Brandon, what are you most excited about this team? Because it does have some interesting people there.
Let's see. I think Austin Eckler is going to have a good year.
I knew you were going to say that. You loved doing fantasy last year.
I mean, look, I think Austin Eckler is underrated, and I can't lie. Austin Eckler is kind of my boy when it comes to fantasy. He's been nothing but good, and anybody who doesn't like him doesn't understand what he brings to the table. He's great at running the ball, and he also has great hands for a running back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is so dangerous. So, yeah, that's my pick.
He was a slot receiver for me in Madden. Fun fact.
I mean, yeah, he has the hands to be a receiver.
What was his rating at slot receiver?
He was like in the low 70s.
Oh, my God.
I was desperate, dude. I was like, sure.
Oh, my goodness. Tanner, I'll continue with the X Factor players. Brandon picked Austin Eckler. What do you have for this team?
I'm a huge Keenan Allen fan, but I have to go with Hunter Henry. I think if they start Herbert, I think he'll be a good weapon for the young quarterback to hit off or to target. So I'll go with him.
Shane, what do you have for this team?
I was thinking Hunter Henry as well, but I'm going to differ, and I'm going to go with good old Bosa. Just thinking defensively here, because last year he was really one of their very consistent, good players, and their defense is in an interesting spot. I mean, they were really good a couple of years ago, and now it's a bit more of a question mark. So, yeah, I mean, just having that, that edge, he's very versatile. That's really helpful for them, and it's reassuring for me. Even though he is just one piece, I think he's definitely a big part of their success, at least defensively.
Yeah, a quick overview of the team. I think Keenan Allen, as Tanner mentioned, is incredible, but I think he needs Herbert to start for him to be successful. It's pretty simple. I think Rivers kind of regressed last couple of years, and Allen kind of had some tough years, especially last year with Rivers. I think if Herbert starts, there's a chance they can really develop some good chemistry there. Their line is pretty old. I think the one word when I look at this defense, it looks pretty old, which
Yeah.
I was surprised by. It just, first glance at this team, Linval Joseph, I think is 28 or 29. Bosa still, I think, 25. They picked up Chris Harris, who is still good, but again, pretty old. It's clear what they're trying to do with, let's see, Nasir Adderley, second-year player. Didn't perform very well last year. I expect bigger things out of him. He was out of a D2 school, but he got a lot of hype out of that D2 school. And but I'll go Kenneth Murray. Again, young player, rookie. I think they need to start looking at how do we get this defense to be younger and faster, and Kenneth Murray will certainly start that. So I'm going to go Kenneth Murray there. And as we always do to finish out the division previews, I missed this the last 2 weeks. I'm going to keep saying that I missed it for 2 weeks for the rest of the time we do this because I missed it last 2 weeks. But we are going to do record predictions. Shane, I'll start with you for record predictions for the AFC West.
Okay, I think you guys are saying that Kansas City is going to win 14, 15 games. I think that's a little much. They do have some pretty tough games in there. I think they will get away with about 13, though. Broncos, I'd say, will come in second at 10-6, maybe 11-5, maybe, but I'll say 10-6. Then I think the Raiders will be third again at probably 7-9, maybe a little worse. I think they're just kind of going to be the same team that they were, just because I don't think they really know what they're doing there at the moment, just with all, the Mariota thing and whatever. Anyways. And then I think Chargers will come in last again, probably like 6-10, just because it's, the same kind of thing. I think they are ultimately on the downfall, but a lot of that is just because, like you said, a lot of old players and stuff that they need to kind of move on from. And I think it'll be, a few years before they start to come back and really pop. So, so that's my record prediction.
Brandon, I'll have you go next for the record predictions.
I've got the Chiefs. Then I've got the Chargers.
Give me. What do you have for the Chiefs? 14 wins.
Just 1 second. 1 second. I'm going Chiefs, Chargers, and then I'm going Raiders, and then Denver.
Really?
Wow, you have Denver really low.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have Chiefs at 15 wins.
Wow.
Probably gonna be wrong about that, but I just think they're gonna be really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I've got shut up, Shane. I've got the Chargers. I don't know. Chargers at like 8-8. Denver. Raiders will be 7-9, and then Denver. I think Denver is going to be lower than they were last year, and I think they'll end at like 6-10.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Intriguing.
that's one of the most surprising like division lineups we've seen.
Yeah, fight
So
me,
far.
Robert.
That's the biggest hot take I've ever heard in my life.
Fight me.
Tanner, you're up on the last one for the record predictions because I don't really do them this early. But what do you have for these record predictions?
So I'll say the Chiefs run away with the division at 14-2. Second place will be Denver at 8-8, probably. The Raiders will be 6-10, and who am I missing? And the Chargers will probably struggle and be 5-11.
All right.
Tanner, it appears your dog doesn't agree with your opinion.
Yeah, I know he doesn't agree with anything.
He's like, what? What? Denver? What?
Yeah, I know.
All right. Thank you, Tanner, very much for joining us. Make sure to check out the Hot Take Bros podcast. Really love the content you're putting out on Facebook and all that stuff. Really great interactions you guys got going on there. So we'll definitely post that Facebook link as we did last time you were on. Thank you very much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me again.
Yeah. Can't wait to have you on more times. And then thanks, of course, to Shane and Brannan for coming in, as always, on Hat Trick Sports Talk. We will see you all next week. Again, thank you very much for joining us, Tanner, and have a great weekend, everybody.